Ladies and the few gentlemen that follow this channel, we have something very serious we need to talk about. I cannot put it off any longer. And from the inception of this channel last year, I wanted to talk about it. Can you guess what it is? Estate planning. I know what you may be thinking. That's a hard left, but there's a good reason for it. But before we get into the particulars, this is the legal code, and on this channel we discuss a wide range of legal topics, whether that's celebrity shenanigans or how to get your small business to the next level. We discuss various topics because I can't talk about the same thing over and over again. I'll get bored, even though that doesn't necessarily support the YouTube algorithm. I think you want to learn as much as you can with a legal twist to it. So that's why I offer the variety. If you like that sort of thing, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course share with anyone else you think will find value. Also, there's an opportunity to work with me to do legal coaching. So if you want to take your business to the next level, if you want to figure out legal blind spots, if you want to make sure you're not infringing on another business, another brand, we could discuss that in the legal coaching session. There is a link in the description box. So it's a very, very valuable experience. We break down what you need to do, next steps, so that you're not overwhelmed and that you can walk away feeling confident and assured. So again, there's a link in the description box. Also, we have legal code merch, which I'm really excited about. It's my first time having merchandise for my business. So if you would like to purchase some of that, that is also linked in the description box. Now, estate planning. It's not the sexiest of topics, I would say, but I think it's a very dynamic topic, and we do ourselves a disservice by neglecting to talk about it. So I'm going to put it out there. And I know many of you be saying, I'm so young, like I don't need to think about estate planning. But maybe you are. Maybe you're only 21, you just graduated college, but maybe your parents are up there in age and they're not thinking about it. So I want to educate you so that you could go back to other people in your life and share this information. A lot of people think they don't want to think about their death. They'll think God's going to take care of it. And it's that mentality that you're doing yourself and your family a disservice. If you're following this channel, you're educated, you're a pack leader, you're a titan of industry. I could go on and on to describe how stellar and fabulous you are. But for some reason, there's a blind spot when it comes to taking care of this section of our lives. And young people are not the only ones neglecting this aspect of adulthood. I mean, seniors are notoriously resistant to doing their estate plan. I mean, they're in their twilight of their life and still refuse to face their mortality and plan for their family and the time when they're not here on this earth. I cannot tell you how many clients I have up in their 70s and 80s who are just like, oh, I'll just deal with it another day. I'll deal with it another day. And another year goes by, and another year goes by, and another year goes by, and all they're going to leave their family with is a disaster. They're still resistant well into their 80s, and I cannot wrap my head around why. And they can't wrap their head around the day that they will no longer be on this earth, which is very interesting. They don't want to imagine it. Also, they're afraid of their mortality, and I get that because America has a really weird relationship with death. And so a lot of people think that they will solidify their passing or make it happen quicker once they start planning for their death. But I'm here to assure you, no, there needs not be superstition involved in planning for your passing. But whatever the reason, I'm here to assure you that it's just another aspect of being a responsible adult. Just like we enjoy other freedoms that adulthood brings, like having children, buying homes, going on vacations, making our own choices, being autonomous individuals, planning for our death is just another aspect of freedom. And you're doing yourself a disservice by burying your head in the sand and saying, I'll deal with it later. Estate planning gives you freedom. Yes, it does, because it gives you choices. It's synonymous with freedom. We want choices. That's why many people spend their entire lives aspiring to be high earners or millionaires, because of the freedom that money brings. And when you estate plan, You buy yourself freedom because you made a choice to determine how your assets, how your money will be divided, rather than leaving it up to the state or fate. I mean, look at the other areas of your life. Have you just done a Hail Mary and said, oh, well, I'll see how it ends up? So why would you do it with this aspect of your life? There are also so many benefits of planning, and this is just a few that I'm listing. One, you have a say in what happens to your loved ones and your assets, rather than leaving it up to the state, like I said, or fate. You have a say. You say it goes to this person because I like this person, and it doesn't go to that person because I don't like this person. It sets up structure to minimize stress during an extremely traumatic period. Do you want your wife having to go through all this paperwork at the time of trying to plan your funeral? That wouldn't be fair to her. It also gives the next generation a leg up and ensures your legacy, because this money is like injected into the next generation to give them a head start. It also prevents anyone else from stealing the inheritance that you have earmarked for someone else, which is so common. When you don't plan, on the other hand, probate judges, lawyers, the state law determines the outcome of your money. You saw my last visit to the court, right? It was like a cemetery. Do you want some bored, apathetic civil servant who looks like this deciding where your money goes? They are the epitome of apathy and indifference. Yet they should be the ones who decide where your hard-earned money goes. I'm not saying all of them. I'm just being hyperbolic. I'm proud of our municipal workers, but we all know their reputation. They're not going to take care and make sure that your desires of what you would have wanted is actualized. Even worse, assets can end up going to people who you don't expect, like if you have a racist uncle that you can't stand, or your sister that you're estranged from and you don't even talk to. If she's the default based on state law, she's going to inherit. Also, we see another scenario where assets get designated to someone who's not ready to handle that amount of money. We see that with the unfortunate case of Whitney Houston's daughter, Bobby Christina. She inherited 10% of her mother's $20 million estate when she turned 21. And then she was set to inherit another chunk when Bobby Christina turned 25, and then the rest. So a total of $20 million at the age of 30. Now, do any of us think that Bobby Christina was ready to handle $20 million at 30 years old? And we saw that with her unfortunate death, that she was around unhealthy influences and unsavory people, and it led to her death. She was truly struggling with addiction, and she did not have the container, the capacity to hold that amount of money. And if Whitney was around and present, she probably would have set up a different plan for Bobby Christina. Also, inevitably, family disputes will arise, leaving some relatives to steal the inheritance because there's no plan in place. This happens more often than I care to admit. Alternatively, when you plan, look at the wonderful late Jackie Kennedy. In life, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis exemplified elegance on the public landscape, redecorating the White House, celebrating the arts, and modeling for the world what it meant to bear grief with grace and courage. And she was stylish to boot. In death, the former First Lady set a different kind of an example, making her final exit with style and dignity, just like we knew in her life, and a savvy plan for reducing her estate taxes for her next generation. She left behind a fascinating and unusual will, signed just 2 months before her death, and I believe she was well into her 80s or 90s when she did her will, but she had a trust. If you want to check it out, it's public record. It's on the internet, but if you want to go down to New York City Surrogate's Court, it's actually available for you to see. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Alternatively, look at the artist we know as Prince. which sources who worked with him closely disclosed that he did not like paperwork, he didn't like lawyers, he just wanted to create like a real creative type, and did not get his affairs in order. Now, this is a cautionary tale. He died of a drug overdose and he had no plan in place. And his estate was valued at $163 million. And because he died without a will, the state, Minneapolis was the state, so Minnesota, decided who the executor, which ended up being a bank and a team of lawyers which have paid themselves handsomely in the tens of millions, gouging the estate to administer his estate and decide how the assets would be distributed. Of course, they're taking their time when doing this because, as we know, billable hours. Two of Prince's 6 siblings, who were his next of kin or his heirs, have since died because this has already been 6 or 7 years. 2 others are already in their 80s, so they're set to inherit even though they're in their 80s, and we don't know if they'll survive this timeline because the lawyers are going to take their time deciding who the heirs are while becoming millionaires during the process. So as you can see, when there's no estate plan, it is tragedy on top of tragedy. The state just determines where your assets go based on state law. They don't care about your wishes. And if you have children, which is even more traumatic, the state law would determine who the guardian of your children would be. So that's also something to think about. If you have children, you need to set up an estate plan and delay no further, because God forbid both of you pass away in a car accident. What happens to your child? Who would take care of your child? But I know you may be thinking, do all assets have to go into an estate plan? Well, you can plan accordingly. Like financial accounts, bank account, life insurance accounts can transfer automatically to the people of your choice, avoiding probate if you designate beneficiaries by what's called a transfer on death, or TOD, or payable on death, through your broker or your banker or whatever. There's usually a form that you could fill out and decide who you would like the designated beneficiary to be. You could fill it out online and email it to the appropriate office, but I implore you, always follow up every year to make sure they have a current record of your beneficiary designation, because these banks are notorious for like mysteriously losing your paperwork. I don't know why. So just so you know, beneficiary designations, you don't have to deal with probate once you have a beneficiary designation. They establish it's sort of like a contract between that person, the beneficiary, and the bank, so that when you pass, the holder, the bank, is legally obligated to transfer your account to the beneficiaries you designated, regardless of what your will says. So it's like a bypass of the will. It's a separate contract, and you don't even necessarily need to include it in your will once you do that. So if you have named your spouse as your beneficiary on your retirement account, and then you get a divorce and forget to change the beneficiary designation, your ex-spouse will still receive it, and there's nothing anyone else can do, even if your will or trust says something else. Again, this is like a separate contract outside of your trust or will. I'm assuring you that designating a beneficiary is so easy to do. You don't even need a lawyer to do that. Like, top secret, like you don't need a lawyer to do that. Just update the information, log on to your accounts, and do it. By making a payable on death or TOD designation, your beneficiary will simply present a death certificate at the time of your passing, and the assets will transfer to him or her without the need to go to court. So it's a very easy and simple step that all of us can take. With all of this, I have some homework and some next steps for you. Think about, who would you like to inherit what you own? No matter how small or how large, who would you like to inherit? If you weren't here, who would you like to entrust with your property? Also, think about the elderly people in your life, parents, grandparents. Talk to them about their plan. Don't let them set you up for failure and frustration by not planning. Talk to them and say, it's time to get serious about estate planning and for us to have this discussion. Also, if you have children, who would you want to be their guardians in your absence? If both you and your spouse pass away, who would you like to be the one to raise them? I know these may be difficult conversations and difficult things to think about, but it need not be, because you're setting up your next generation to succeed. And with all of that being said, you can always follow up with me. Like I said, my link is in the description box if you would like to set up and begin working on your estate plan. Especially if you have children, if you own a home, if you own a business, it's time to think about, in the event you're not here, how will these things keep operating? What will happen then? And I implore you to think about it and take the next steps. Do not procrastinate any longer. And with all of that being said, I bid you farewell. If you have any questions or comments, drop that in the description box. Just trying to think if I said everything I wanted to say. Yeah, again, talk with your elderly relatives. Implore them, start pushing them in the right direction so that you can solidify your inheritance. I cannot stress that anymore. Don't let them rule you. You tell them, like, this is important and we need to get this done. And I think that's it. Yeah, there's nothing more I want to talk about with that. All right, so I leave you, bid you farewell, and have a good day. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. This is what I forgot to mention in the end of the recording in the last video. I tell you to speak to your parents, your grandparents, your aunts and uncle, because guess who will be holding the bag? You are, the next generation. Like, you carry the torch, and you will be the one left trying to find a probate attorney who's not going to gouge your estate in order for you to receive your inheritance. So you, as the next generation, it falls on your shoulders to make sure your elders do what they're supposed to do if they're not doing it. So have the difficult conversation, because you will be the one left hustling and trying to figure out what they own, where to get it, because it's your birthright to inherit it. Why would you leave it up to chance? Why would you leave it up to them if they're not doing it? That's why I pressure you to be the responsible one and push them so that you're not left scrambling, because you will be scrambling, having to hire a probate attorney who's going to charge you tens of thousands of dollars, take his or her time. Years will be passing, and you need that money to start your business, to put down on the down payment on the home. You want to have children. All of these things, like I said, the inheritance really gives the next generation a bump. So why would you foreclose yourself from that opportunity by thinking it's none of your business? It's your business, because that's your family's legacy. Why would you prevent yourself from being able to inherit it by burying your head in the sand? So that's why that's where I wanted to leave this video, to make sure you have these difficult conversations, because it's going to end up yours anyway, but don't you want to receive it the easiest way possible? Through the path of least resistance, by convincing your loved ones that this is the way to go. All right, I bid you farewell. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.